Hey, everybody. Hope you had a wonderful weekend and your team won yesterday. So today I want to. We're still at the beginning of the year, and this is something that it's a pet peeve of mine that I like to talk about at the beginning of every year, because doing these things will give you a much more profitable year, and it's amazing how few guys do it. So question is, do you know the numbers, or are you just wandering around in the wilderness? And what I mean by that is, do you have any clue how profitable you were last year, how you got that profitable, and are you using that information to create a plan for this year? So let's talk about that. First of all of you know, or should know, what I feel about sales goals. What do I feel about sales goals? What do I feel about goals in general? Good or bad? Good or bad? Tom's got it. Yep. Nick's got it. Good or bad, guys? Yeah, it should be about the process. So it's not about the goals, it's about the systems, putting those systems in place. So how you put those systems in place to make sure you make what you want to make is you work backwards. Know how much you want to make. That's not a goal. In fact, if you do it the way I'm telling you to do it, you'll make the goal every single time. So it's not about the goal, it's about achieving what you want. So figure out how much you want to make this year and move backwards from that. So what are we talking about? So how much you want to make a year to live comfortably. So what do you want to make this year? Now, then what you're going to do is you're going to look at, well, on average, then, how much do I make per new client? Well, what does that tell you guys? If you know how much you want to make, and you know, on average, how much you make per client last year, so if you want to make $1 million, just make it easy. If you want to make $1 million, and you made $100,000 on each client, how many clients do you need to bring on this year? I'm using farcical numbers here, but if you want to make $1 million, and each client made you $100,000, how many clients do you need to bring on next year, or this year? Sorry. Easy math, guys. $1 million divided by what? 100,000 equals what? 10. That's right, 10. So take your income desired, whatever that is, divided by the average revenue. So how many of you guys know from last year what the average revenue per new client brought on? Average revenue per new client brought on. So throw me some numbers, guys. Those of you that know it, how much did you average per new client brought on last year? Nobody's putting in numbers. So if nobody's putting in numbers, guess what I'm going to guess? How many of you know this number? Guys, is this an important number to know? Oh, perfect. Steve said 11,400. Awesome. Thanks, Steve. 11,400. So guys, is this an important number? Steve knows it's an important number. Is this an important number to know? What you make per client? Can you design any? Are you wandering in the wilderness if you don't know how much you brought on per client? So if there's one thing that you take from this call today, only one thing that's actionable, because I know I throw you a lot of ideas, but if there's one thing that's actionable from this call, guess what I would ask you to do? After we get out of the call today, go back and look at all the new clients you brought on and find out how much you made on average per new client. Is that an important number or not an important number? Important I, not important N. Come on, guys. Important I, put an I, or not important N. Is that an important number? No. Yeah, Bob, Tom. Yeah, exactly. It's important. It's important. It's important. So that's going to equal, when you look at income desired divided by the average revenue per client, that's going to equal the number of new clients you want to bring on. So using Steve's number, if you're, and I'm going to round it up, Steve. So let's just say $12,000. Because you said 11,400. We're going to round up $12,000. If he wants to make $1 million, guys, how many new clients does he need to bring on? If his average, the average he makes on revenue per client is 12,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to take $1 million, right? 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, divided by 12, 1, 2, 3 equals, needs to bring on 83 clients this year. Does 83 new clients seem like an impossible number? Does 83 new clients seem like an impossible number? Not if you're doing seminars, because if seminars, you could easily bring on 6 new clients on average per that's easy, 6 new clients per seminar. So he'd be done in about 8 months, take the other 4 months off. See, what that's going to tell you, number of new clients needed. So now, if he's going to wait for referrals, well, I don't know. It depends on whether you have a good referral process. But you're going to have to ask yourself, how many referrals did you get last year? So if you got 2 referrals last year, is he going to make his 83 clients if you only got 2 referrals last year? No. So what this is going to do is going to say, okay, I need 83 new clients. How am I going to get in front of those 83 clients? And guys, do you sell 100% of the people you get in front of? No. So you have to kind of walk through marketing and how successful that is. How many leads and prospects do I need to create customers? So you need to know what your closing ratio is. Of every person I get in front of, all those leads, all those possible sales, you divide that by closed deals, that's going to tell you your closing ratio. So how many prospects do you need? So how many prospects does my marketing bring in? Well, how much does my low-cost marketing bring in? How much does my lead generation bring in? How many people do my event marketing bring in? That's going to help you determine what your marketing calendar is this year. And should you just wing this, or should you know, if you want to be successful, should you know what you're going to do for marketing every single month in 2024 by now? Yes, you should. If you want to be, again, I'm not saying you have to be successful. I'm not saying you have to be off the chart successful. Many guys on the system are in a situation where they've made their money. They're doing this now because, heck, it's a good retirement income. Many guys on the system have spouses that make great money, and they don't need to make the kind of money that. But 3/4 of the guys on the system, they're still in this business full time, and they want to be successful. For those guys, should they know what they're doing every single month of 2024? They should. So that's good. You're going to need to assess these things. You're going to have to analyze these numbers. You're going to have to analyze your performance. How good are you at marketing? How good are you at closing those people? How good are you at the process? What can I do to improve that process? And then monitor those results all the way through the next year with feedback. So look at the 5 key prospects. How many prospects does my marketing produce? That's the first thing you need to do. And then when I create a prospect, how many of them turn into a first new appointment? Well, if I can create, say with lead generation, if I create 30 leads and I only get 5 appointments from those leads, I need to know that, right? If I have 30 leads and I get 5 appointments from those leads, well, because leads are not going to be nearly as successful as a seminar is going to be. So I know then, oh, geez, I'm going to have to create an awful lot of leads to possibly hit 83 clients by the end of the year. So how many of my leads, how many of my prospects, however I get them, because with a seminar, you're going to have a much higher ratio of prospects, people that come to the seminar that are going to make first appointments. So how many of those then first appointments actually show up? Sure. So at a seminar, I make 15 appointments, but only 12 of them show up. Well, then I need to know that number, right? That's going to be part of those numbers. How many of those people, let's say I have 15 appointments, 12 of them show up. How many of those people do I get to opt in to a 21-point checklist? Now, what should those numbers be? If you have 12 people that actually show up for an appointment, how many of those 12, if you do the system the way it's set up, and you end that meeting with our 6 questions, with our 6 unique selling propositions, how many of those people should opt into a 21-point checklist? How many people want to know, yeah, 9 or 10, that's right, Steve, 9 or 10. Because how many people want those 6 unique selling propositions? If you don't know those 6 unique selling propositions, that's a great thing to do after this call too. So they should all opt in because everybody wants to pay 70% less on their IRA. Everybody wants to get double their income with less chance of running out of money. Everybody wants to make sure that they have that program that when their spouse dies, that income is replaced. Everybody wants those things. How many of those number 2 show up? Again, it should be 90% of those people actually showing up. How many tell you they need to leave their advisor? Okay, so after you do 21-point checklist, you have 12 people make those appointments, 11 show up and want to go on to the 21-point checklist. 10 of them actually go through the 21-point checklist. You do the 21-point checklist. If you're good, and I'll ask Steve this because Steve is good. How many of those 10, Steve, would you imagine are going to then tell you they need to leave their advisor when you do it, Steve? So you do a 21-point checklist using the scripts with your skill level. How many of them are saying they want to leave? You're saying 100%. Or saying 84 to 100, depends on the, okay. How many of them show up to a number 3? How many of them are going to want to then say they're going to want to leave their advisor and actually leave their advisor? How much money did you move? How many of them wanted to move that money? How much money did you move? So simplified working backwards, I want to make this much in revenue. This is my average commission per person. This is a premium I need to write to make that the average client premium versus profit. So premium in the books divided by number of clients needed to close. So I'm just going through the theory here because I'm going to go through actual numbers here in a second. Number 3 appointments, first appointments, new buying units. So let's look at how that would work. I want to make $500,000. My average commission is 6%. Premium needed to make $500,000 at 6% is $8.3 million. My average client brings on $300,000. That means I need 28 new clients. To get 28 new clients with my closing ratio, I need to have 35 appointments. Of those 35 appointments, to get that, I need to have 44. So in this particular scenario, are they close to Steve's 100%? 100% of people leaving. No, so are we even giving the benefit of the doubt here? So to get 44 21-point checklist, how many first appointments do you need? 88. So that's how well is this person doing at his first appointment using those 6 unique selling propositions if out of 88 they only get 44 21 appointments? 44 21-point checklist appointments. They're only getting 50% of them. If you get 88 first appointments, you should be getting 83, 82 21-point checklists. So how many new buying units you're physically in front of? You need to have at least get in front of 176 people. But again, if you were better at the first appointments, what could you do? What would happen to this number? If you were better at turning first appointments into 21-point checklists, what would happen to this number? What would that number turn into? Only about 80 or 90. So guys, do you see how these numbers will give you the process that you need to put in place to create the income you want this year? Because if all I say is, I want to make $500,000 this year, I'm going to work really hard to do that, what's going to happen within 3 months? If all I say is, I want to make $500,000 this year, and I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to bust my butt to make that happen, what's going to happen within 3 months? If I set a goal of $500,000 and just wish for that to happen, and just tell myself I'm going to work really hard. You're not, the first 3 months, by the end of the first 3 months, what's going to happen to that goal? You're going to say, crap, I'm way behind. I'm just going to give up. Now, do you see what these numbers, we just made a point here. If I'm only getting 88%, if I'm only getting 44 of my 88 first appointments to move, what would I do during that first 3 months? I'm seeing that I'm only getting half of my first appointments to move on to a 21-point checklist. What skill would I work on What skill would I work on during those 3 months to make the next 3 months better? Presenting the unique selling propositions at the end of the first meeting. See, then I have a way to work towards the goal. If I don't have a way to work towards the goal, I'm going to just do what? Throw up my hands and say I can't, that goal is too high. So everybody answer this now. How important are the numbers? I is important, N is non-important. I've got one I, 2 I's, 3 I's. Come on, guys. I or N's? Okay, everything I. Yes, if you are still full-time in this business, or you have a desire to make a certain amount of income, the only way you're going to do it is to know these numbers. How many successful businesses don't know their numbers to a T? None. So run your business like the successful business it is. Make sense? Julio. So this is an important thing. And if we work with retirees, we're going to run into this more often than not. What and what not to say to a grieving client. So we have a lot of retired clients. Because of that, they're all up in ages. We're going to lose clients. So how do you deal with that? Saying I'm sorry or I'm sorry for your loss just doesn't cut it. That doesn't continue the conversation. That doesn't invite the story, and it doesn't invite their feelings and emotions. So this expert who spoke recently at the Retirement Coach Association conference said that we have been taught to communicate by using the I statements, such as I feel this or I think that. But when it comes to grief communication, she said you want to honor the person who's grieving. Financial advisors are in a good position to do that because they know their clients and have built a relationship with them. The bottom line when dealing with grieving clients is to bring your emotional game, your E game, namely empathy. Empathy, she explained, is not putting yourself in other people's shoes because other people's shoes don't fit you. So we want to connect with their emotion. To communicate better with a grieving client, she suggested saying things like, your husband John will be missed. It's felt by all of us. I loved his sense of humor, his commitment to his children. See, that sounds much more supportive and authentic than, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for your loss is like when there's what do all the politicians say when there's a mass shooting? What's the same thing? I mean, quote unquote, what does every politician say for every mass shooting? What do they say? What do they all say? Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. So guys, how many of us really, when a politician says our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and families, really think that politician's thoughts and prayers are with the family? If they just jot that off every single time, what do we think? That's just what? That's right. See, BS. It's BS. And it's the same thing when somebody dies. You say, I'm sorry for your loss. No. Tell them something that was amazing about their spouse that you'll miss. Your husband, John, will be missed. It's felt by all of us. I loved his sense of humor. He always made me laugh every time we got together. And I loved the way he was committed to his children. How is that going to be received versus I'm sorry for your loss? Which one is more in tune and authentic? There's nothing wrong with writing down what you want to say in such situations, practicing after added. Guys, I do this all the time. If I'm giving a toast, I am a lousy off-the-cuff speaker when I'm at an event or when it's my anniversary or when I'm going to be giving a toast. So guess what I do prior to doing that? I research it, I get examples, I make it my own, I write it down, I edit it, and then I edited it again, and then I edit it again, and then I do it. So one thing I will say, though, is that I don't, Steve was saying I write down on cards. I do write it down on cards, but then once I have it down, I memorize it, boom, put those cards away, and then I look that person in the eye, and I will give that toast, I will give that a thoughtful speech, I will give that whatever. I memorize it at that point. Because when I read it, how much does it lose power when you actually aren't connecting with your audience? And can you connect with your audience when it's on a card? You really can't. So, but prior to that, Steve, yes, I write it down. But here's some things what not to say. And believe, when I was reading this, and man, oh man, I've actually done these things. Yikes! I wish I could go back in time. So she's saying advertisers also need to take note of what they should not say to a grieving client. That starts with sentences like at least or you should. Typical responses that advisors should avoid include at least they didn't have to suffer any longer. At least your children didn't have to see him sick for long. They are in a better place. No. Do not say those things. Other types of statements should be that should be avoided include you should really get back out there. You know, you're young. You could meet somebody new. You could do more. Stay busy. Move on. Blah blah blah. She said at least statements is akin to a consolation prize that doesn't land and isn't supportive. As for you should statements, they should be they are manipulative or inappropriate because people don't want to be told what to do. There are statements that are dismissive, such as you'll get past this, you're young, things will get better. Guys, I don't know about you, but I've said some of these things. And they sound good when they're coming out of your mouth. But now stepping on the sidelines and looking in, can you see how insensitive they are? Also, if a pet dies, for those of you who have pets, should anybody ever tell you, well, you can always get a new dog? Or should, you can get a new puppy to replace him. Should you ever say that to somebody who's lost a pet? Because people today, right or wrong, people look at pets as what? Animals or what? Those of you that have clients with dogs or cats, do they look at them as animals or do they look at them as family? Yeah, they're part of the family, June. Exactly. That's right. They're part of the family. There are comparative statements like, I know exactly how you feel. My dad died last year and it was awful. My grief was overwhelming. Yeah, at first glance, that seems like a good thing to say, right? I know exactly how you feel. It's kind of a feel-felt bound that we found is the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do in sales. The wrong thing to do. So we shouldn't do it when somebody dies either. I know exactly how you feel. My dad died last year and it was awful. My grief was overwhelming. What you're saying is it's an I. Do they really care about, at this point, their husband died, their wife died, their pet died. Do they really care about your experience and how much grief was you went through? No. They care about what? I'm sorry, we're all human. Who do we care about? More about you or more about me? I care more about who? Me. Don't use I statements. She cautioned against the temptation of communicating with a grieving client on Facebook or LinkedIn. No. The number one thing to do is call them at least. If you can't visit them personally, at least call them. Send a handwritten note on your clients and friends and family with 15 minutes of your time. Write a personal note. You can include it in the next step, such as I will reach out to you in the next 2 weeks, or I'm dropping by a dinner next week. So these responses said, she said, do not meet the person who's grieving where they are. It disenfranchises them and does not acknowledge their loss. Ballast offers these additional tips when dealing with a grieving client. Ask permission. First, number one, ask permission. People might not want to talk about their grief. So things like, passing of your mother and your feelings are really important to me. Would you like to talk about today? They may say yes, or they may say no, and then you honor that. Advisors should ask questions like, what has your support system been like currently? Do you have a lot of support here in town? Where are you finding the best help? What is not helpful to you at all? Guys, if you ask these questions, what does it make you seem like? A financial advisor or somebody who cares about them, a caring person? Use terms they are using. Not everyone is ready to hear the words death or dying. If your client says their husband or daughter has passed away, guess what you're going to use? Remember, that's aping. Agree, parrot, empower. This is talking about parroting. Say exactly what they use, the terms that they use. Passed away, moved to a better place, died, whatever they say, you say. Listen to learn and understand. It's important to stop talking sometimes and hear what the client is saying. Listen with the intent of where they are, understanding what they are going through, and then work on connecting the dots of where you can provide and open a further conversation. Guys, do these things, this is a great slide that I would print out and have in my folder somewhere to help deal with these things. Embrace silence. Silence is golden. Breaking a conversation helps the client process, think, and respond and hold a memory. Trust me, this has taken over the whole world, and so we want to pace it slow. So if you know, because a lot of times they're dealing with their emotions, they're talking to you, let them have that moment, 2 moments, 5 moments of silence to process what they're dealing with in their head. We don't know what that is. Let them process it. So do these things make sense? Is this having this slide available to you if something happened to one of your clients' spouses or pets or whatever? Do these things seem doable to you? These are pretty simple things to do, right? But how much of a difference will it make to that person and what they think about you? I think they are gold, Steve, exactly. So I don't know, Missy, can you somehow pull this slide out and make it available on this underneath the coaching call so they can easily print this?
Absolutely. Yep, I certainly can do that.
Good. Thank you. So all these other things are terrific and what not to say, things like that. But guess what? If you do these, oops, I went too far there. If you do these things, it's going to avoid those things you should not say anyways. Okay? Cool. So today we've caught up to beneficiaries on the 21-point checklist. So the first 7 non-financial things we talked about was what kind of an advisor would I be? What kind of advisor would I be if all I did was talk about the money, deal with things that I sold you, if I didn't take care of these other non-financial things? Then last week we learned that we went and had them attack, and we don't attack, but we had the client attack the institution they worked with. But beneficiaries is the first place they're going to have them identify their advisor as a problem. All those other things led up to this point. Now, with beneficiaries, are we going to have the client say, my guy is screwing me? No. What is the purpose? We're going to have them talk about their guy, but what's the problem with their guy here? Didn't know, didn't care, or did it on purpose? Which one of those? Didn't know. When it comes to beneficiaries, is the problem that he didn't know, didn't care, or did it on purpose? Which one of those things? This script is designed to do what? Aha, see, he's got it. Didn't know, didn't care, did it on purpose. Which one? Most of you are getting, yeah, it's didn't care. Didn't care. Because there's different levels, right? Let's say somebody did something wrong and it hurt us. And it hurt us because they didn't know. We're not happy with that, but are we livid? They did something that caused us harm, but they did it because they didn't know. Are we livid? You know, go back to the example we just talked about with a client that passed away. Maybe they didn't know any better than to say something that made us uncomfortable or made us sadder or made us whatever. Do we hold a grudge forever on that, or do we just say that person's uncouth? They don't really know how to deal with this stuff. We're not happy with them, but are we livid with them? Are we going to remove them from our lives? No. So that's the lead. I mean, it's not good, but didn't know is the thing that we can forgive the most. Then the next thing, what's the next thing? It didn't care, did it on purpose. Hurt us because he didn't care, or hurt us because he did it on purpose? Which is worse there? The worst thing is when they do it on, doesn't care. That's not very good either. But when we put it on a scale, did it on purpose is the worst. So with clients, when they find out that their advisor put them in a worse situation because they didn't know, can they forgive that? I've been there before, guys. Have you been there when you pointed out that their advisor screwed them and all they think is because the advisor didn't know? Will many clients forgive their advisor if they think their advisor just didn't know? Yeah. Yes, they will. I've been there. It's amazing. I scratch my head. Now, then we go to didn't care. That starts to get them irritated, right? And then, but that's what we're doing is opening it further and further and further. So we have to get where they didn't know. Then we take them to they didn't care. And that allows us then to get into the, well, they didn't know on some of these things, didn't care on other things. Is it possible for that they did some of these things on purpose then? Yes. See, when they wake up in the morning, they love their guy. They love the guy. The day that they come into your office to do a 20-point checklist. When they woke up, they love their guy. Because if they didn't, they would have left him a long time ago. So we have, and if all we do is, first of all, jump in. The first thing we do, which is what I used to do when I made 50 grand a year, was jump in and say, look at this guy screwing you. When you do that, what's their knee-jerk reaction? To defend him. So we have to do this. See, they look at their guys being on a pedestal. Being on a pedestal. So the non-financial things, what they do is they learn, hey, there's things that my guy isn't doing, things that he didn't know that he should be doing, things that he didn't realize are important to me. So if we get him to realize that there are some things that the guy's not doing because he didn't know, does that allow them to think, well, maybe there's some things that he did that didn't, because he didn't care? Yeah, see, that's the next step. So by didn't know, that knocks him off the pedestal. It knocks him off his white horse. Now they think, well, geez, there are some things he didn't know. Then we get to the beneficiary. Well, there's some things he didn't care about either because they didn't really affect his pocketbook. That's what then opens them up to saying, you know what, maybe he did some of these things on purpose. See, it's the foot in the door mentality. You can't just go for the throat. They have to convince themselves that he's doing little things wrong, a little bit bigger things wrong, a little bit bigger things wrong, a little bit bigger things wrong, bigger things wrong, bigger things wrong, huger things wrong, terrible things wrong. That's what we have to do. So do you see how this thing is put together to have them slowly realize, Socratically, my guy is actually screwing me. Does that make sense? So the beneficiaries is the first time we're going to have them point the finger at their own guy. But even then, we don't go for he's doing it on purpose. We're just going to do that he just didn't really care because he didn't make money on it. It's easier for them to say that than to say he's purposely screwing me. So we have to get to there first, which then opens the door saying, well, if he did things because he didn't care about me, it's not a huge leap that he's doing things on purpose to screw me. Does that make sense? Can I get some yays or whys if that makes sense to everybody? Why we have to go with this slow foot in the door mentality. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, good. Meeting process, 21-point checklist, training video. And we're going to do the beneficiaries here. Beneficiaries. Now, besides your house, what's your biggest account?
Probably 401k.
401k, your IRA and your 401k, exactly right. Yeah. So, if something would happen. So why did we ask that first question of beneficiaries? Besides your house, what's your biggest account? Why did we ask that question if we're talking about beneficiaries? So I said the first question we asked. If we point out the beneficiaries are wrong, is that a big problem or a small problem if that's where most of their money is? Big or small? B or S? If most of their money is there, is that a big problem or a small problem? And guys, are most people's monies in their qualified money, qualified accounts? Yes. So we're having them say that this is a big problem. They don't know. Do they know? Do they know by me asking that question that I'm saying, hey, this is a huge problem? Do they know I'm asking that? Because my first thing said, well, the next thing we're going to talk about is a huge problem. What are they going to do with their knee-jerk reaction? Defend, defend, defend. So see how I'm laying it out here? And how many people are going to say, yes, that's my biggest account other than my house? Everybody's going to say it. 100% of people say it. So again, also, and I ask this every single week, is there any way Jeff could answer the questions any differently than he's actually answering them? Which proves that if you ask these questions the exact same way, your clients are going to answer them the exact same way that Jeff does. So please, if any question I ask, Jeff could answer any differently, type something in there, say stop. Type in stop here so we can stop, and then I want you to tell me how else the client would have answered that question other than the way Jeff did it. Is that fair? Because if I don't see any stops, guess what I'm going to assume? That all clients would answer the exact same way that Jeff answered. Make sense?
To you, Jeff, who's the beneficiary in those accounts?
Rochelle.
And Rochelle's beneficiary is?
Me.
You. That's the right way to do it. So good job on that, because
we talked about this last week again. First thing I do with every script is tell them they did something good or something bad. On every single script, the first thing I do is say this, yeah, that's right, Steve, did something good. And did I just tell them they did something good here? That gives me a more balanced look to them. I'm not saying, you did this bad, you did this wrong, you did this bad, you did this wrong. No, I'm saying, hey, there's things here you did good, there's things here you could have done better.
People do get that followed up. Let me give you a quick example. I had a guy came in, he was just distraught. He was 40 years old, had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they just lost their wife and mother. They'd been married just 5 years earlier when they were 35 years old.
Okay.
So he was distraught because this is what had happened. His wife was a high-powered executive. They had $400,000 in that account.
Okay.
And he was a stay-at-home dad. Do they think they need that money or not need that money?
Well, you need it now.
Need it now, right? So when she got out of school, again, she didn't get married for 10 years until she was 35, right?
Mm-hmm.
When she got out of school, she went right to work for this company. And again, she was very successful with the company. But when she started working for the company, she opened up a 401k. Now, she wasn't married and wasn't going to be for 10 years, but she did have a mom and dad. And
guys, why am I telling this story? When I first started to do the beneficiaries, and they would discover that the beneficiaries were wrong, guess what they would say? No. This goes to my wife and goes to my kids because it's in my will. Very good, Steve. He said contract versus law. Excellent. That's exactly why we do it. Because people would argue with me. They figure out the beneficiaries are wrong, but they say that's not a problem because in the will, it says it's going to go to my kids. In my will, it says it's going to go to my spouse. So, guys, then I have to what? Tell them they're wrong. And I'm never going to tell them they're wrong. I have to go through this whole process. It's probably going to take me 7, 8, 9 minutes to get them to discover for themselves that no, it does not go through the will. So what we're doing, I put this story in here to prevent that objection from coming up because I don't want to have to overcome an objection. The best way to overcome an objection is make sure it never comes up at all. So up front, because that was my number one objection, people said, no. In the will, it says it's going to go to my kids. And then I would have to walk through this whole big process to get them to realize that it wouldn't. I didn't want to do that anymore. So instead, I have them answer up front, tell me up front that their qualified money is not going through the will. It's not going through the trust. I don't care if they have the most beautiful trust, the most beautiful will in the world. It's not going through there. It's going to go through whoever is on that piece of paper. Because I say so or because they say so? Because they say so. And when they say so, guess what? They can't later say, no, that's not the case. So this whole story is about preventing me having to tell them they're wrong, handle an objection. I don't want to do those things. I want them to tell me up front that it does not go through the will or trust, no matter how great a will or trust is. That avoids that problem down the road. Make sense?
She did have a 20-year-old brother. So guess who she said the beneficiary was?
Mom and dad or the
mom
brother?
and dad first. Yeah, mom and dad or the brother. So the mom and dad first. If something had mom and dad, she said what?
The brother.
The brother. Yeah, so it makes sense or doesn't make sense?
That makes sense.
Makes sense. So in the next 10 years, unfortunately, she lost her parents, both of her parents, and her brother had been having some problems, had been in and out of rehab, little skirmishes with the law, etc. So the reason I bring that up is because when this gentleman and his wife got married at age 35, they were smart, just like you. They got all their estate plans put into place. They got their power of attorneys in place. They did all those things. They did all the right things.
Okay.
Except for one thing. She forgot to change one thing, and guess what it was?
Probably the beneficiary on that account.
The beneficiary on the account. Mom and dad are gone. Guess who it went to?
The brother.
And because a good stand-up individual who's been in and out of rehab and skirmishes with the law, guess what he said? I'm going to do the right thing and give it to this gentleman, or guess what he said?
I'm going to keep it.
And the gentleman had already been to the attorney, and guess what the attorney told him? Will
Not a lot
doesn't
you
apply.
can do, yeah.
Yeah, so he wanted to know from me. Guess what I had to tell him?
Not a lot you can do.
So you can have the best trust in the world, the best will in the world, but if it says somebody's going to be the beneficiary, does the will and the trust matter, or whoever you mention as beneficiary is going to get it?
Whoever you say is the beneficiary is going to get it.
So you guys.
So who said that now? Who has told me that that's how it works? Did I tell him or did he tell me? And if he tells me that, can he argue with himself later on without looking like a fool? No.
I've got it right. That's perfect. You did exactly right. So now, my understanding, you have 3 kids, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if something happens to you, Jeff, it goes to who?
Rochelle.
Let me get my writing utensils working here. Rochelle.
Mm-hmm.
And name of your first child?
And guys, if they have 4 kids, will the software automatically make 4 boxes here? If they have 7 kids, will the software automatically make 7 boxes here? Yay or nay? Yeah, it does. So it'll tell you I'll draw this for you, and all you need to do is then fill it in.
Jonah.
Jonah. A-H.
Uh-huh.
And second child?
Mark.
Mark. And third?
Stephanie.
Stephanie. Mind if I say Steph?
No, that's
Okay. So the way I understand it then is you have it, if something happens to you, God forbid, it goes to who?
Rochelle.
And if something happens to Rochelle, it goes to 80% to Jonah, and then 10% to Mark, and 10% to Steph.
Well, actually, we have it going equally.
You have it going equally, right?
Yeah.
Because if you...
Why did I say 80% 20/20? Why am I going to have him tell me over and over and over that this is how it works? Because the more he tells me this is how it works, the more it's what? In his mind. True. And the reason I said, hey, 80/20/20 is I wanted him to say what? No. It's equally. So when he says it's equally, he's now told me that the beneficiary is set up to go to the children equally, one time. Let's count how many times I'm going to have him tell me that it goes to the kids equally. How many times did we get? So this is 1.
If you did it anything but equally, what would happen?
Well, there'd be arguments. There'd be problems.
That's 2.
So I've asked 100 people this. How do you think? How many said yeah? It's 80/10/10. What do they always say?
Oh, they always say equally.
That's
So it goes
3.
to your spouse first, and then the children. What?
Equally.
Equally.
So that's 4.
Now, do any of your children have children or plan on having?
So now he said so far 4 times that it goes to the kids equally. What's the likelihood he's going to say that's not the case down the road? High or low? Non-existent. Now I'm going to have him tell me how much he loves the grandkids. Why? Another objection I used to get was that after they found out the kids were, the grandkids were being disinherited, they would say, well, that's the grandkids aren't my responsibility, it's my children's responsibility. They'd start to tell me how they make excuses. They don't want to look stupid. They don't want to look like they did something wrong. So they start to tell me they don't really love their grandkids. So before we get to that point, before they discover they've disinherited their grandchildren, I'm going to have them tell me how much they love their grandchildren. Because if they tell me they love their grandchildren over and over and over, can they at the end then say, I know I said several times before that I love my grandchildren, but I really don't? No. See, it's removing again that objection I kept getting. That's why we're having them do this.
Having children?
Yeah, actually, they all do.
Oh, super. How many does Jonah have?
He has 2.
2. And Mark?
1.
And Steph?
2.
Sorry.
2.
2. So, if something happens to you, God forbid, it goes to Rochelle, then it goes to the kids again, what?
Equally.
Okay,
and then
5.
if something, God forbid, happened to Jonah, where would you want his share to go?
To his kids.
Yeah, his kids. Because how do you feel about your grandkids?
We love them.
Love them. I mean, I asked 100 grandparents, what are they all going to say about their grandkids?
Well, they love them.
Some even tell me that they love them more than who?
Well, than the kids.
Than the kids. So everybody loves. If somebody said they didn't love their grandchildren, it'd be a little what?
Yeah, it'd be a little strange.
A little weird. So yeah, obviously everybody loves them. And again, if something happened to Joey, you'd want it to go to who?
His family, his kids.
Kids, and they might need it more than anybody, right? Because if they lost a breadwinner, then might they need that money more?
Oh, I'm sure they would.
College.
Oh yeah.
Cars.
Yeah.
Also, if you think about it, can you, if it didn't go to them, could you really fix that? You're up in heaven, right?
No,
Can you fix it in heaven?
No.
No. So what made they think, Grandpa and Grandma think about them if they didn't get the share that was owed to them?
They might think we didn't care.
Yeah, it does.
So now, can they go back later on and say, no, I didn't really want the money to go to the grandkids at this point? How stupid would Jeff look if in 5 minutes when he discovers the grandkids are disinherited, that he'd say, well, I really don't want the money to go to the grandkids? He'd look like a what? What would he look like if he said that? Because he just told me now 5, 6 times that, no, I want to go to the grandkids. I love my grandkids. They would need it more than anybody else. Of course, I would want it to go to them. He said it 5, 6 times. So can he say then 5 minutes from now that, just kidding, I really didn't want to go to my grandkids? Can he do that without looking stupid? No.
Yeah, so that's perfect. So it goes to them. Now, if I have something and I want to divide it equally between 3 people, how much did each person get?
So here's another technique. So am I saying money or am I saying something? I'm using non-monetary things, a third-party thing. Because will anybody argue with me that if I have something and I divide it equally between 3 people, it's going to go a third, a third, a third? Will anybody in the world argue with that? If I have a thing that I want to divide equally, a pile of dirt, a pile of pie, a pile of cookies, and I want to divide it equally between 3 people, they each get a third. Will anybody argue with that? No. So that's why I start with non-monetary things. If I jump right into, hey, you wanted to go this IRA to go to the kids equally, and it says it should be a third, a third, a third. See, when I start to add their personal things into it, they start to defend those things, or may, not will, but may start to defend. I don't want them to have any ability to defend those things. So I start out with something that's even non-financial, a thing. Could be a pile of cookies, dirt, or even just saying if I have something and I want to divide it equally. And then I'm going to say, what if I have an account? An account, not their account, an account over here. I have an account over here. Are they going to argue that if I have an account and I want to divide it equally between 3 people, that it would go a third, a third, a third? Are they going to argue with that? No. So now they said, hey, anything in the world that's a third, if Mike had a money account, it's a third. Can they then say, but in my money account, though, would not be done that way? Can they argue that? No, they can't. See, again, I'm setting it up so they cannot argue. So there's 0, 0, 0 objections. And think about this. I started out talking about this. This is the first script where we go after the guy. So where's the biggest chance of them defending their guy? The first time they discover he's doing things that are hurting them. So this is why I found several objections occurred over and over and over with the beneficiaries. They would object. They would object that, no, I didn't really love my grandkids. They would object that, no, it's the will is going to go through the will. They would object and say it's not a third, a third, a third. They would object to these things because it was the first time they were learning that my guy actually did things badly and it could hurt me. So I had to put in these 3 different stories and have them say over and over and over to prevent that. And that's because this is the first major hurdle you have. This is the first place they may start to object. And I've removed the 3 big objections by having those little stories in here. And I just want you to understand that, because the beneficiary script is a little bit complex. But the reason it's complex is because it's the first place they'll really want to start to defend their guy. So I have these things in here so they remove their ability to defend their guy. Because once they've discovered that he doesn't care about them, how easy. Once they've said in their own words that he doesn't care about them, how easy is it for them to jump to the conclusion he might be doing things to them on purpose? Because if somebody doesn't care about you, is it easy for them to screw you? If somebody cares about you, that's hard. It's hard for them to screw you. But if somebody doesn't care about you, is it easy to screw you? Yes. So that's why this script seems a little more complicated than all the others. It's because this is the first place they're gonna start to try to defend their guy, and we want to remove all those possibilities so we don't get into having to overcome 3 different objections in this. We don't want to overcome those objections. Have the client overcome those objections themselves before they even come up.
Yeah.
A third.
A third. How about a pie? I wanted to be a pie equally between.
A third.
And if I have a money, it's going to be what?
A third.
A third, 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 right? Now, what if I only have 2 people and they want to divide something by, to make sure each person gets it equally? How much would each?
Have I mentioned their IRA at this point then? Something, a pie, money, a third, a third, a third. Okay, now let's say I have 2 people and I want to divide something, a pie or money, be a half, half, half. Have I mentioned their account yet? Yay or nay? Yay or nay? Somebody? I have not. So they're saying everything in the world works that way. Can they say then everything in the world works that way except for my accounts? They cannot.
Half.
How about a pie?
Half.
Yeah, I mean, anything divided between two people would be what?
Half.
Right. So God forbid something happened here and you had two children, how much would each one get?
Half.
And if one gets half, how much is left over?
Nothing's left over.
Who did we just disinherit?
The grandkids.
The grandkids. And was that done on purpose?
No, actually, we didn't know that could happen.
Now, just from talking to you guys, I think you probably raised some great kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So obviously our mark.
Okay, now I'm going to overcome another objection. Because guess what people would say when they discovered their kids or grandkids were disinherited? Well, of course my other two kids are not jerks. They're going to take care of those other kids. They're going to take care of their nephews. They're going to take care of their nieces. That's what people would say. So I have to remove that objection too. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do here. So the whole beneficiary script is as long as it is because I'm overcoming objections before they come up. And the reason I'm getting so many possible objections here is because this is the first time they have to point the finger at the guy and say, you know what? He doesn't even care about us. He only cares about himself.
Mark and Steph going to want to make right for Jonah's kids.
I think they would.
We would hope that they would, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. Guess how the IRS, when they step into this thing, said, hey, Mark and Steph are doing a good thing. Do you think they say that, or do you think they're going to give them a penalty for gift tax?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have to pay a gift tax.
A gift tax. And did you want all of your money to go to your family, your kids, your grandkids, or did you want most of it to go there, and then we can send the rest to the IRS with gift taxes?
No, we want it all to go to the kids.
We want all to go to the kids, right? So we want.
Now I'm saying gift tax, and we all know gift tax only applies to millions of dollars. But where is most of the people's money? Is it qualified or non-qualified? It's in qualified. Okay. So when they pull it out, it's going to get hit with a what? I don't care if it's over $1 million or if it's under $1 million, over 10 million or under 10 million, over 25 million, it's going to get hit with what? Their regular tax rate. So, and then they give it to their niece or nephew. Guess what? Have they been penalized? That's right, Dennis. Have they been penalized then? Do you want to pay tax on money and then give it to somebody else so that you pay the tax? No. So does anybody want that to happen? No. So I'm getting them to realize that having them just think that, oh, okay, my grandkids are disinherited, but their aunt and uncle will take good care of them. That's a smart thing or stupid? High tax or low tax way of doing things? High tax way of doing things.
Want to do this right the first time or the second time?
No, you'd want to get it right the first time.
And what did we find out?
Well, it's not right. It needs to be fixed.
Yeah. And again, this is something we can help you with very simply.
Okay.
Okay, so Jeff knows that it's wrong and knows it needs to be fixed. Do I have anything at this point? Do I have anything at this point? He said in his own words it's broken. He said in his own words it needs to be fixed. So he obviously understands he has a problem now. Do I have anything at this point? Yes or no? Yay or nay? Nothing. Why? Is this about them realizing they have a problem or realizing they can't trust their guy? At this point, did they realize they can't trust their guy? No. So now I have to be good at the rest of this script for them to realize my guy did this because he does not care about me.
Cost you nothing.
Okay.
Fill out a form.
Okay.
And there's the hassle of making sure it all gets done correctly, but we'll have to take care of that. So we found out this is done right or wrong.
Wrong.
Wrong. So, we found a couple of things that maybe have been done incorrectly here with titling and beneficiaries, but there are things that your advisor has done very, very well. For example, he's got some things right here. So when we look at your retirement account.
And this is the same way I'm doing it here. When it's the first time I'm going to have them realize their guy is hurting them, the first thing I'm going to have them say is that, hey, he's not doing everything wrong. He's doing some things right. See, do I sound balanced when I do that? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So the first thing I say, hey, he's doing some things right. Before we can get to, like, let's look at the things he's doing wrong.
Is his name and address correct here?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's important to you, because if something happened to you, how quickly or how easily would you want your kids to be able to contact that person?
Well, I want them to be able to contact him right away.
So you want them to hide it, or do you want it to be upfront and easy to find?
Easy to find.
So is this correct?
Yes.
Yes. And now, it would also be important to him. Why would this be important to him? If somebody else's name was there, how would that affect him?
Well, he wouldn't get credit for the account.
And by credit, you mean what?
He wouldn't get paid.
He wouldn't get paid. So it's important to you, but it's also important to him.
That's important to him, too.
Important to him, too. Now, is the amount right down here?
Yeah, I think so.
It better be right to the what?
To the penny.
To the penny. Yeah, because you worked how long and hard for that?
All our life, really.
Yeah, all your life. So it better be accurate, and I'm sure it is. So that's important to you or not important to you to have that right?
No, that's important.
Yes. And is it also important to him?
Yeah, he wants us to see that he's doing a good job.
Yeah, if it was inaccurate, what would you think about it?
Yeah, he's not very thorough.
Not very thorough. Now, does it also affect him? Because if that's $300,000 or $30,000, will that affect him at all?
Yeah, I mean, well, $300,000 would be better.
For who?
For everybody.
For everybody, and obviously for you. So why is he concerned about this number being right, though? Because what does it also affect?
Well, I'm sure it affects how much he gets paid.
Well, does he get paid different on $30,000 versus $300,000?
Yeah, I'm sure he makes more on $300,000.
So he wants to make sure this is what?
He wants to make sure it's right.
So he's got a couple of things right?
Mm-hmm.
Address, his contact information, that. Now, we did find out he did one thing wrong, which was what?
Well, the beneficiary form.
Now, do you think that investment salespeople get paid extra to fill out an application, or is that part of their job?
I would think it's just part of their job.
It is part of their job. So we found out he did some things right. We found out he did one thing wrong. These things he did right, how does that affect him?
Well, he gets paid on those things.
How did this affect him?
That didn't affect him at all.
So the things that he got right
are the things that affect him.
And the things he got wrong. Now, again, is money important? Darn tootin' it's important. But what's more important than money?
Well, I would say family.
And what got wrong here?
Family.
Yeah. So why do you think this mistake might have been happened?
Well, I'm sure he didn't care or wasn't important to him. He just didn't. He overlooked it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And guys, who's pissed off right now? Husband, wife, who's pissed off right now? Tom's got it. Come on, guys. Who's pissed off right now? Every single time I did this, the wife was pissed. Because she may not understand the investments, but she understands her love for her grandkids. And her husband has just now admitted that their advisor got their grandbabies in a bad situation. And she's thinking, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. Does that make sense? We now have her on our side. And again, I'm making the assumption that the guy takes care of the investments and the wife is more concerned about the family. I've seen it reversed, 1 out of 20 times, but that generally is how it is. So do you see now that we've kind of walked through and torn this apart, why it's complicated, but that it needs to be? Because making it a little bit more complicated up front makes it a lot simpler to get where you want at the end, which is their guy did this to them because he did not care, and to get there with no objections. Make sense? Super. You guys, appreciate you sticking out here for an extra minute or two. You guys have a great rest of the week, and we will talk to you all next Monday. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.